As a student, I was really fascinated by why people buy stuff. And I studied marketing and cultural anthropology, and there was one concept that really struck out with me. It was called self-image congruence. It kind of said what we bring into our life reflects who we are or who we want to be. It's always stuck with me. So let's reflect on that. What we buy reflects who we are or who we want to be, either kind of our true identity or our aspirational self, and its choices. These choices power business. More than 2/3 of our global carbon emissions come from business choices. So I want to talk about the relationship between us as consumers and how businesses work and what's behind the mirror. Many of you have heard this amazing talk by a guy, Simon Sinek. He's had more than 30 million views, and he's saying people don't buy what you make, they buy why you make it. I agree with that, but I'm also fascinated by that missing link, how stuff is made, because these things all fit together as a system, and it's very important, I think, to understand them holistically. The how is what's behind our level of emissions in the world, our level of waste in our world, and our ethics, social ethics, animal welfare, and environmental ethics. And it's all driven by us on the other side. There's a group of people, there's people in this room, people around the world, who are just trying to struggle with this idea of who we are or who we want to be. For 70,000 years, we were progressing along, and then the Industrial Revolution hit, and everything got thrown in the air. We discovered mass production. We could make all kinds of things that we didn't have access to beforehand. But something powerful and quite profound happened. We changed our relationship to nature. We shifted from nature being our home, our environment, to seeing nature as a resource. It went from being constrained by resources to suddenly resources being perceived as unlimited. This has been exacerbated by our nesting habits. We live in cities that compress time and space. It's a bubble of our own design. I live in a city, I love it. It's exciting, it unlocks creativity, it's sociable. But it's very separate from nature. It's not how we were designed originally. So these two forces, seeing nature as a resource and becoming separate from nature, are changing how businesses work and changing what we buy. Nature for me has a lot of answers, and the first time I got really exposed to that was when I was staying with families that live in the high country, in the mountains of New Zealand, sheep farmers. And I learnt that nature is a collection of ecosystems, an interconnected connection of ecosystems, of organisms interacting with their environment. It was the triangulation between the animals, the environment, and the people that really captured me. It was a mini ecosystem in itself. I was very inspired by that, and it really brought to my mind 3 natural laws that I want to share with you in terms of how I've built my own business, Icebreaker. Symbiosis, sustainability, and adaptation. I believe that if we can harness these natural laws from nature and apply them back to businesses, we can build better, stronger businesses. My journey started in 1994 when I was 24. I met an American girl and she'd toured New Zealand. She stayed on a merino ranch and really wanted me to meet the farmer. I lived in a city, I thought, what do I want to meet a farmer for? But it was a profound experience. And he gave me a t-shirt made out of merino wool. Wasn't as cool as this one. It was like white, it had stains on it, but it felt amazing. I put that on. It was nothing like, the old itchy stuff. It felt gorgeous. I went running in it, I went mountain biking in it. Didn't hold odour, regulated my temperature. And all I'd worn before for outdoor stuff was synthetics, human synthesizing nature, polypropylene, polyester. This was totally different. I was very moved by that experience. This is what was behind that. It's an animal, the merino sheep, in itself an adaptation. Regular sheep lived down here. These guys adapted to live in the mountains, and with that there was a change in performance quality of the fibre. This was great for me because wool was a big part of my life. This is my first sheepskin, Lammy. I ate it as part of the teething process. I also had a problem to solve. I had a litany of bad outdoor looks that culminated in the 90s with my one-piece ski suit. So probably the real reason I started Icebreaker was to sick of being dressed by my mother. So here I was, my first little shared office, 1995. We had the what? We had an amazing high-performance natural product. And we had the why. We wanted to build a business to give people a natural choice in an age of synthetics, because all the outdoor gear was synthetic. What about the how? I didn't know how to make stuff. What I'd inherited, because I bought the idea and the farmer became a shareholder, and I'd inherited a very basic kind of prototype. We bought some yarn, made some fabric, chopped it up, made some garments. And it worked for a little bit. In 1997, I got a letter from a merino wool grower, and she said, "You're a disgrace to the industry. This top, which is supposed to be awesome, fell apart." And I was so shocked. I didn't know what happened. What had actually happened was that the wool that was in the yarn, we were only buying yarn, was a bad batch of wool. The reason it was a bad batch of wool is because it was breaking. The reason it was breaking is because the animals weren't healthy. The reason the animals weren't healthy was because the environment wasn't providing them the sustenance they need. That's when I realized that looking beyond and challenging every stage in the supply chain would reveal opportunities, sometimes real challenges too. So thinking about this symbiosis, how organisms work together for the benefit of the ecosystem. What the farmers needed at the time reminded me a little bit of the first rule of business. To get what we need to give others what they need. They were part of an auction system. They'd sell their wool on international markets. They didn't know if they were going to make a profit or a loss. What we needed was high-quality product with clear ethics behind it. So we set up a long-term contract system that has been the foundation. We've worked with up to 200 families. We buy around 1,000 tonnes a year, and we pay a price out to 3 years in advance. That lets them make long-term planning decisions and gives us what we need in terms of quality and the ethics behind it. But that's just only the start. There are 3 principles that I learnt. Traceability, we have to know where our raw materials come from. Ethics, through purchasing those raw materials, we have to have clear ethics. And visibility, if you put a middleman or something like that in the middle, they're optimized to get the cheapest stuff in, and that's how you cut corners. A friend of mine used to run a global drinks business. Their policy was they had to buy sugar from a middleman, and that had to buy from a middleman, because with 2 levels of obscurity, they didn't have to take responsibility for the sugar. That's the antithesis. 3 people came into my life. Janine Benyus, Michael Braungart, and Peter Senge. They were all speaking at a conference I was helping organise in New Zealand. And they each gave me insights for the next stage of our journey around biomimicry, around taking responsibility for additives in the supply chain, and thinking holistically as a business as an interconnected web of systems. Because our next challenge was about sustainability. It was about how we reduce waste and create the most efficient ecosystem. Because I had a big problem. Sales were growing, but the supply chain we had based in New Zealand was collapsing. I did a global search around the world, and we looked across America, we looked across Asia, we looked across Europe. The worst manufacturing I found was in China. Old school polluters cutting costs. The best manufacturing I found was in China. A new breed of highly efficient, highly ethical companies with the best technology in the world. That taught me this key insight. It's not where it's made, it's how it's made. It's actually the ethics behind the partners. So in that quest to build a supply chain, we got so many choices. We got waves and waves of choices. And I need something to guide me the whole time, all the way through. And it was that exploration. It was that asking what was behind the product and how they made it. That's how we managed to build a supply chain 13 years later, which still I'm proud of, and we're working on, and we're improving, but we've got the foundations in a strong place. Another person that really amazed me was Ray Anderson and his turnaround of Interface Carpets. He says it was a disgrace. We were a plunderer of the earth because they were an old school polluter. Yet through a focused program, they reduced fossil fuels by 60% and got water usage down by 3/4. It just reminded me, this stuff is really hard, but it takes an intention. It takes a consciousness for a company to take on a search and to harness some of these laws to see how businesses can be stronger. It's very much a journey. We haven't got it nailed, and we're constantly faced with trade-offs. For example, we have a product that has a little bit of nylon in it. It does that because it makes it last twice as long, but it reduces the biodegradability. There's no right or wrong here. It's about conscious choices and trade-offs and trying to work in the best interests of, on one side, your company and your customer, and on the other side, the environment. The third law I'd just like to touch on is adaptation. There's a litany of companies that haven't grasped this natural law. And there's some wonderful examples in nature of organisms that have. For example, close to us here we have the emperor penguin, fantastic adaptation from nature, black on top, presumably to keep the animal warm and absorb the sun, reflecting the light down below. And there aren't many organisms, in fact it's only nature that can pull off an orange beak and a yellow highlight in the hair at the same time. But I was amazed to find out that 429 of the original Fortune 500 companies are now extinct. They've gone, and it's only been 61 years because they haven't grasped this law of adaptation. However, there are companies on a journey now, old school companies, on this kind of good to great course. For example, Ford Motor Company made their biggest loss ever in 2006, $12.7 billion, but they're now back in profit. They failed to adapt to their changing environment. People didn't want big gas-guzzling cars. They loved making them because it was where they got the most profit. Consumer trends, the environment around them was radically shifting, and preferences shifted to smaller and cleaner and cooler. There are also other companies that have this at their very core, new species being built. For example, Tesla, a purely electric car, high performance, good looking, but also powered by electricity. Hey, 25% of global emissions are caused in the production of electricity. So they've got a problem. But what a response. They buy SolarCity and integrate it into their business. They're extending their ecosystem to not only, to not contribute to the problem, but to help solve it. We have a fantastic turnaround opportunity around renewables. So in summary, your business just isn't the cool bit. It's not the why and the what. It's the how. Imagine a line between these things, an integration, a holistic integration between how a business is made, because the why of a company, the real integrity, is just as much the products as the system behind it. When we're trying to balance these two things, we've got the how responsible for all the emissions in the world, but also that is the opportunity to make the most difference and reduce those. By embracing these 3 laws from nature, I believe we can build stronger, cleaner businesses by introducing concepts such as symbiosis, sustainability, and adaptation. And thinking like nature, business itself can overcome this gulf and start reconnecting. And it's not about being perfect, it's about being on the journey for better. And us, on the other side, here we are, buying or choosing not to buy stuff, which is reflecting either who we are or who we want to be. This is where the real power lies. All businesses die if they're not powered by consumers. It's about the balance between these 2 worlds. I'd like to leave you with this question then. As we go forward, as you think today, and hopefully think for the rest of your life, this question: who are we as a species, and what do we want our world to be? It is our choice. Thank you.